Hello, friends. Welcome to the Influential Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Duncan, and I'm a mom and lawyer with a passion for empowering and encouraging moms to thrive in the midst of the chaos of motherhood. Every week, I chat with a guest who is making a difference in their community or profession and share practical tips for busy moms. I'm so glad you're here. Enjoy the show. On today's episode of Influential Motherhood, I am talking with my friend, Lauren Palmer, who is a mom of four and is a self-proclaimed momcologist. And we'll talk more about what that is as we hear the story of how her son, Jennings, fought for his life against acute myeloid leukemia, which is also known as AML. So, Lauren, thank you for being on the show, and I'm grateful to you for sharing your story today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
Yeah, I'm very grateful. So Lauren and I we met in middle school, and she was on the same cheerleading team as Dr. Alyssa Daniel, who was on the show. So the three of us, so Alyssa is a dermatologist now, and so Alyssa was on the show a few weeks ago, and so this was like a nice little trifecta because we are having the McClintock Middle School cheerleading team of 1997 on Influential Motherhood now. So
love it.
Yes. I love it. I know. So, Lauren, a lot of this episode is going to be kind of heavy on about you and your family. But I want the listeners to get to know you. And so tell us a little bit more about Lauren and what are some things that you enjoy doing for yourself?
Well, I am your typical textbook Enneagram 3.
Mm-hmm.
I am probably geared more towards productivity. So I love a project. I love people very much. What I do for fun it's hard for an Enneagram 3 to answer because
yes.
we don't do a lot of fun things. We do a lot of productive
things. That's okay.
Productive things bring me joy, and I really kind of have always measured my life in impacts, and some of those are small and some of those are big. I love to work out. I've been working out kind of consistently since I guess it's been about 10 years. And that's something that I didn't really do consistently in high school and college, but I found it when I got into the career world, and I really needed a place to funnel a lot of stress. And I have been kind of doing it consistently ever since. It looks different in every season of life. Looks very different right now with 4 small kids, but that's something I enjoy. I enjoy serving others, serving my community. Again, that all looks different in this current season. But that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. Do you still sing?
That's a good question. That's something I really love. But the Lord has sort of not given me tons of opportunities for that other than at church.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that at church on occasion. And I haven't done it lately just because, again, where we kind of are in our post-trauma season and raising 4 kids under 6.
Yeah.
It just hasn't, there's a lot of priorities, and it's kind of it's kind of on the B or C list, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean it's not important to me. It is. It's just there's other things that have to get done.
Yeah, well, that completely makes sense. But I'm glad you're getting to do it at church.
I still love it, and I know my church would love it if I did it more. And I'm hopeful that as the kids get older, and maybe even in the next year or two, I might tap more into that.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so tell us also about your family.
Yeah, so I have a 6-year-old daughter, Caroline, a 4.5-year-old son, Jennings, and then I have 22-month-old boy-girl twins, and they are extra.
But they're so cute.
They are so wonderful, but they are my stretching babies. They've stretched me in a lot of new ways. But we love them and are really enjoying getting to know them and their personalities as they kind of develop. They're almost 2, so they're wonderful.
Oh, they're as cute as they can be. Oh my gosh. So let's start there with your story. So I remember it's funny because I remember a lot of where I was, like when I was hearing about parts of your story that I didn't really know would be as big of a story, obviously. So I remember standing in my kitchen, and I was like just scrolling through Facebook, and I saw your twins' pregnancy announcement. So take us to that time and tell us what life was like at that moment in time for your family.
So I'll take you back like just a touch before that to say that Joel and I really felt pretty good with our 2 children. I was working part-time at our church, and I had decided to stay home after Caroline was born. But for me, like I could do a whole podcast interview on that topic. For me, it was a very hard decision, but you have to decide one way or the other, right? So you make a decision and you go. But it was a grieving process of grieving my career life. And so anyway, so I had gotten to a point where I had 2 kids and I was working part-time, and it really was kind of like best of both worlds for me. But we just felt God calling us to maybe add to our family. And I did not want another child for so long. And I remember praying, like, Lord, like, you have to give me the desire because I don't have it. I'm not going to do this. And it really was amazing how, and I can't really say what the timeline was or how long it took, but I just started to have this desire for another child. And I remember calling some of my close friends, and they were like, what? Like, are you serious? Like, because I'm the person that's like, nope, so done, sold all my stuff, all of that. So that's kind of like where we were when we found out that we were pregnant, and which was, April of 2017, something like that, maybe March. And I was like, okay, great. This is great. Because we wanted it. It wasn't a surprise. Like the pregnancy itself was not a surprise.
Yeah.
But it did feel like, okay, this is going to be a stretch, but I felt very like good with it because it is what we wanted. And we went to the ultrasound appointment at 8 weeks, and I was just praying, kind of like you always do with a pregnancy. I was just praying, Lord, like, pray this baby is safe and well and all is good. And Joel walked in a little bit late, and got started, and I just remember it was very quiet. And she wasn't saying a whole lot. And I think, like, looking back, it's like if I was an anxious person at that time, it would have been kind of like nerve-wracking, but I'm not an anxious person. So I wasn't thinking about anything being bad.
Yeah.
But she started to like type in all these numbers and like pulled down a drop box and was like clicking on fetus 1, fetus 2. And I just looked over at her and I was like, there's only 1 in there, right? And she just looks at me and she's like, nope. And Joel and I just look at each other, and it was just a laughing, crying, more laughing, like just more shock and like, what? And what do you do? Like, what do you do in that moment? You're just like, it's hard to articulate. Everybody, and then you're the lady at the OB's office that's got the twin announcement, and it kind of like goes through the office, and everyone's like saying hi to you when you're walking in the hallway down to your room. Like, they're like, oh my gosh. Everyone was it was exciting. And so it was all like a crazy blur. And then, it was a lot, to take in, and it was a taking in for months.
Yeah.
And we weren't ready. we're still not ready. It's just been, again, a stretching for us. Again, someone who, I was never, it's been hard for me to admit this, but I'm in a place where I can admit it now. But I was never like one who longed for motherhood or dreamed of motherhood and dreamed of this many kids. So God's really brought me to an uncomfortable place, but a place that I believe He's called me to really sanctify me and make me the best version of myself. So, so yeah, that was a very pivotal time.
Yeah, it sounds that way. So you were anticipating Christmas twins.
That's right.
Right?
We were.
And so the other kind of snapshot moment I have is where I remember where I was, when I saw the post on Instagram, where you were sharing about Jennings' diagnosis. So I was going to lunch with Damon at a restaurant called Mythos Grill here in Greensboro, and we were sitting down. I think I was like waiting for him, and I was because I got there first, and I was on my phone on Instagram, and I saw the announcement, and I just remember it completely taking my breath away, because, and I'm sure you felt this on a, times a million scale, but you were the family that it seemed like this could never happen to.
Right.
And so take us to the diagnosis and kind of that time, and I guess, kind of the 1,000-foot view of how he ended up being diagnosed and kind of what transpired from there.
Right. Sure. So he was, 2.5, so a little sweet, precious, a little toddler, and verbal, but not like very, like,
Yeah.
And we just started to I started to notice some differences in him. He was a really bright kid, like bright, not as in smart. Well, he was that too, but just really easy and full of joy, and just had a bright light in his spirit. That's just the best way I can articulate it to somebody who doesn't know him. And slowly that just started to sort of dim, and he was getting kind of sick all the time, like different viruses, infections, fevers. He also kind of had these meltdowns, which I, as his mother, knew were not real tantrums, but they looked like to anybody else like a tantrum. And so those were some things that were happening. And I don't know if we'll get to this, but basically those tantrums ended up being that he was having significant bone pain.
Oh, okay.
So they were related to his disease burden. So, but again, he can't really articulate it. And so he's having tantrums. That seems kind of normal. He's getting sick. That seems kind of normal. He's in preschool 5 days a week because I'm working part-time. It's all this stuff that, like, looking back, it all makes sense. But in the moment, I'm massively pregnant. I mean, hugely pregnant. I carry huge. The babies were big. We're just kind of like waiting for this big life change. And I wouldn't say I was like too distracted not to notice, but it was like it was also just an innocence to what this could possibly be.
Yeah.
Just an innocence, a total innocence that I continue to grieve and miss. But anyway, but I did the right things. I don't regret anything that I did. I kept taking him to the pediatrician. And then on December 4th, 2017, they called me again from preschool and said he had another fever. And I was just like, at this point, I'm 36 weeks pregnant. The twins are due literally any moment.
Right.
And I just was fed up and ready to just get this taken care of. In my mind, I was just like, okay, we're just going to get this taken care of. We're just going to figure this out. So we go to the doctor, and at that point, he had a very swollen lymph node. That had just showed up like 2 days before or a day before. And so we go, and she almost diagnoses him with like a infection, and prescribes an antibiotic. And so I remember saying, well, something's wrong with his immune system. And I will tell you, I am not like a super smart medical person. I think I look back now and I feel like that was really the Holy Spirit giving me the words, because had it not been for those words, she wouldn't have called for the blood work. So eventually we got to the decision to do the blood work. And the blood work was, it was obviously leukemia. It was
oh my goodness.
It was not, this could be leukemia. It was so very much leukemia. So his white blood cell count was very, very high. It's actually 97,000. So any nurses or doctors who are listening will understand the total criticalness of that number. And it's really shocking, and still something that's hard for me to understand is how critically ill he was, and how he didn't seem that critically ill.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so she came in, and I remember like opening the door because I had Caroline with me. She was 4 at the time. And I remember opening the door of the pediatrician's office or pediatrician's room and kind of saying, like, are we done yet? Like, can I leave? Like, this is taking forever. I'm not hugely pregnant. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon because we got like a late sick visit. And our doctor just said, no, like, you need to go sit down. And she came in, and she was so professional and so kind, and just said, he has leukemia. It wasn't, she didn't like, try to dance around it. She just said it, which I'm so thankful for because I'm a very direct person. And at the time, Joel, my husband, was almost about to board a plane to Tampa for a business trip. And before this, our biggest worry was like he was going to miss the birth of the babies.
Yeah.
So I'm calling him like in total tears, and he thinks I'm having a panic attack because he's about to get on a plane. But I'm like screaming at him, do not get on the plane. And he was literally like, they were boarding.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, do not get on the plane. They think Jennings has leukemia. You need to come to the pediatrician's office right now. So he came. We were admitted to the hospital that night. We were not asked to go home to get our stuff. We were told to immediately go because of his blood counts.
Yeah.
And that started our dive, crash course in the world of pediatric cancer. That was our first day.
Oh man. I just can't imagine. I mean, it sounds like you went straight into where I think moms kind of naturally can get to, which is like, I've got to power through and get through this, So like, you can't get too far down because you just have to keep everybody going, right? And so you all end up in the hospital. And then how long had he been in the hospital when the twins were born?
So he was admitted that night, and I was 36 weeks to the day. The hope at that point became that the babies would stay in for a couple more weeks, which I felt confident in because I always carried late or term. I've actually never gone into labor.
Oh.
And so I always need help. But it was also sort of like, well, this is twins and anything can happen with twins.
Yeah.
And like 36 weeks, you're considered like it's time, like you can go longer, but you're good to go. And it's normal to go then. So that was kind of nerve wracking, but I just kind of went into like self-protection mode, and I had to really disconnect from some things in order to just power through and keep my body calm, in order to keep them in as long as possible and to be there for Jennings and for Caroline and for my husband. And thankfully, Joel kind of took on the role of, which is such an ideal role for him, of like the information gatherer.
Yeah.
He's just better at that. And so I was asking him questions about things. I'm a verbal processor, and I need to hear things like 2 or 3 times, whereas he's like a sponge, like he hears it. And so we were such a good team during that time. And I'm so thankful because I would need to kind of go back and say, okay, so what are we doing? And what is this about? And why do we do this? And why does he take this medicine and all of that?
So you said you let go of some things during those couple weeks. Like what are some things that you feel like you had to let go of in your state of kind of survival mode for everybody?
I think just like the ideal way that I would want to be a cancer mom.
Yeah. Yeah. Or a twin mom, right?
Twin mom, everything.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, I'm not going to be able to take in all this information. I'm not going to be able to process all of this right now. It's not that I wasn't processing the hard and the grief. Like there was a lot of crying. there was a lot of crying, and there's a lot of like that. It was more just like the cancer information and all of that I'd listened to them, but I didn't hold myself to a high expectation of trying to have that all together,
Yeah.
because one, I trusted Joel and I just didn't feel like I could.
Yeah.
At that point, it became a very clear delineation in our marriage of who was going to handle what. It was Joel was going to be on Jennings and I was going to be on the babies. And it was that, it was that delineation for a long time.
Yeah.
For several months after the diagnosis, through the treatment and all of that. And there's some aftershocks that came with that, and some after grief in some parts that I'm still dealing with. The fact that I never touched Jennings' central line, which is where how he got his medicine. It was the line that's in his heart and how he got his chemo and his blood and all that. Joel did that. And I'm so thankful that he did, but it's also like, gosh, I wasn't really there doing that. Like, there's some guilt with that, but it's just what the cards that we were dealt.
Yeah.
And I have to, be careful about the guilt that I carry on things, and give that to the Lord often.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't be everywhere. And one of the things that I really struggled with the whole time was I only felt like I was with each child or my husband in little percentages. And so everybody was getting this small part of me, and nobody was getting me fully. And the Lord sustained my family through that, and gave me grace, and he showed up where I couldn't be.
Yeah.
And I know that to be true, but that doesn't mean that I didn't really fumble through it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, and that fumbling is, I've pictured like I think where we can't make it all the way, like the Lord makes up for it, like he meets us there.
Exactly.
So when you were, I guess, at the beginning of the diagnosis and, an impending birth of twins, what were your conversations with the Lord like? Were you dealing with anger more than fear, or kind of fear more than anger? And like, how did your faith journey kind of cycle through all of this?
I love that question. In the beginning, I was on my knees physically, mentally, knew my position before the Lord.
Yeah.
And that I was completely helpless, and was I would say felt close to him. And that doesn't mean anything super spiritual. My prayers were very short. They were very desperate. They were most of them were made on a hospital couch, which wasn't even a couch, like not even a bed. It was like horrible. Like I just remember, like during the day I would function really well, because people are in and out, and you're with your kid, right? So you're not like wanting to like lose it. And then at night I would put on headphones and listen to worship music and just unload my tears, which was a good release. But it was also really hard because I feel like I could not control myself, and my grief and my sadness and my so much loss, like of our old life, and fear for Jennings's life was primarily the issue.
Yeah.
Because at his diagnosis, which I didn't share, but his prognosis was we were given for AML was 50-50. 50% of kids survive and 50% don't. So that number never really settled well on me, as it would on anybody.
Yeah.
So fear was really a big part of it. In the beginning, though, I just felt like the Lord was so powerful to, I trusted his power to heal Jennings, and I claimed his power over his body and just said, Lord, you can do this. And if it's your will to save him, like, please do. And so that's really was the nature of my prayers for months and months and months and months and months.
Yeah.
They were not very eloquent or long. They were very desperate and very short. And I would say anger has more shown up maybe later on. I think in the aftershocks of trauma, anger shows up. But most of mine, it's not that I don't struggle with anger. I do. But most of my feelings are grief and fear. Grief of the lost life, grief over what we lost in that time with Jennings when he was in treatment, grief over what we lost with the babies, grief over Caroline's first year of kindergarten and what that looked like. So many things that were messy and not the way they were supposed to be. And then just fear for the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that was, well, I guess so where we kind of left off in the story, because I know the story of the next year-ish, but for those who are hearing this for the first time, so the babies were born, they were healthy.
They were born. They were born. So the morning of December 20th, 5 days before Christmas, I woke up in Jennings's hospital room and like 5 o'clock, 5:30, and kissed Jennings goodbye and Joel goodbye and walked by myself up to the maternity floor in the same hospital to have the babies. And Joel, of course, met me there right before the babies were born, but he stayed with Jennings as long as he could and then came up for the C-section. And so they were born. They were healthy, perfect, 6'10" and 6'13", big twins. And as a twin birth would go, looking back on it now, I mean, it was totally perfect. There were no problems at all. And there was no NICU time. They were just wonderful. And to think on that time is really tough too, because it's like, it didn't look how it was supposed to look.
Yeah.
Joel was downstairs sleeping with Jennings every night. And that wasn't because we didn't have people to help us. It's just that we only trusted Joel or myself to be that person.
Yeah.
Because there was so much going on. He was getting blood. He was getting platelets. He was getting chemotherapy. There was so much going on and so much to take care of. And he needed his mom or his dad.
Yeah.
So we had the babies. And then I was released 3 or 4 days later. I remember maybe the second day, Jennings' hair had begun to fallen out because by this time he had 10 days of chemotherapy, so his hair was starting to fall out. And I was wheeled down from the maternity ward to his room so he could sit on my lap. And we shaved his head because we didn't want him to be uncomfortable, like losing his hair. Or just like experiencing that. So we just shaved it off. And so that was a really monumental moment, just a picture of the two worlds that I was about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just moments and moments and moments after that of me living in these two worlds and 3 worlds when I count Caroline and trying to keep her healthy and normal as possible.
And she was with your.
At that time, yeah. So the very beginning, she would stay with grandparents. So we're very fortunate to have my parents here in town and Joel's parents. And so during the early time, they traded off. And then when I came home with the babies, she came home.
Okay.
But then countless volunteers from our church and friends with, because it's Christmas break at this time. So people would take her for the day and like take her to do fun things. Our church had like a sign up genius for Caroline time.
I love that.
They thought of everything. So that was such a gift. And it was so important to Joel and I from the beginning that our number one priority became keep our family together, our marriage together, our kids as healthy as possible. And the Lord really provided through his people during that time so that we could do that. So the babies were born and then I came home. We had Christmas at the hospital. So I came home for like a day and then went back to the hospital for Christmas.
Oh, man.
And then, New Year's. And Jennings had 3 more rounds of chemotherapy. And for AML, every round is a month-long stay.
Okay.
So he had 3 rounds of chemo in Charlotte. And each round he stayed 30 nights in the hospital. So he and Joel clocked 90 nights in that hospital. At Novant Hemi Children's Hospital here in Charlotte, which is a St. Jude affiliate clinic. And after his first round of chemo, we found out that he had a low level of disease still remaining, and that put him in the high risk category. and meant that he needed a bone marrow transplant to save his life. So Caroline, my oldest daughter, was actually his donor, which was a huge blessing.
And she was how old at the time?
She was 4.
She was 4.
Yeah, well, I guess by the time she donated, she was a fresh 5-year-old.
Yeah.
She turned 5 in March. So he did those 3 rounds of chemo here locally. And then we moved to Memphis, Tennessee to live at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital for 4 months for him to have his bone marrow transplant. So we moved there in early April of 2018. And his bone marrow transplant was on April 19th. And really, a huge part of our journey was that initial treatment, but the next significant part of it was the recovery from bone marrow transplant, which is incredibly grueling for any kid. I would say Jennings did fairly well, but even at fairly well, he really struggled.
Yeah.
So it was about a year before we were kind of like back to quote normal.
Yeah. Whew. Even hearing it all now, I mean, I watched it as it was happening, but just hearing it all again just reminds me of just how, like, for lack of a better word, just how crazy the whole thing was. Like, yeah, I mean, I can't think of a better word, but just the craziness of it all, that you all had all of this piled onto you. And I'm sure, even probably for you retelling it, who knows how many times you've had to retell the story. But I mean, did you have moments where you thought, like, Lord, what else is there?
I did, but they weren't the moments you might think.
Yeah.
It's funny how once you're given a reality, it's your reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
It feels, and no one can really understand this until they're living something like this. And so, I remember in the beginning being it's very strange, but being very shocked by people's reactions. Like, and a lot of that was my own shock and my own grief.
Yeah.
I remember when he was first diagnosed, people were like, "Oh my gosh, we're so brokenhearted. Like, we're so brokenhearted for you." And I was in my mind was like, "We're fine. Like, we're fine. We are going to be fine." There's this like, thing that kind of takes over your mind. And so the twins thing, I would say that was kind of obviously the thing that was sort of like, Lord, I mean, but it's like such an interesting position to be in as a mother, because you're like, you want the babies, but the timing ended up being horrible. And so it really changed my view of them.
Yeah.
It became a burden instead of a blessing. And that was a hard thing to carry, to feel that way about them. And of course, not wanting to make them feel that, but you're human and you're having this experience and you can't change how you feel. So that was really hard. And then there were some things that happened all throughout this that were like moments when I really was like, are you kidding me? Because life, and this is something I'll share just for anybody who has a friend going through tragedy, life continues,
Yeah.
Plumbing stops working and cars stop working and the lawn still grows and people still need to eat,
Yeah.
But like one example was like we moved in when we were in Memphis. Jennings was discharged from transplant, which in transplant world, bone marrow transplant world, is a really big deal. It's exciting, but it's also like then the care really goes to you as the parents. And he was on dozens of medications. He had a central line. He had an NG tube in his nose. That was his feeds, his food. There was a lot of care. Yeah. And the day that he was discharged, Charlotte, my girl twin, was diagnosed with bronchiolitis and hospitalized in Memphis. And I remember, and I honestly, I think it's either that day or the next day that our alternator died on the van. And it was just like, that's a moment I was like, I stopped texting my friends what was happening because I was like, they're not going to like, nobody knows what to say here. Nobody can give any sort of, this is such a mess, and to this day, I can't name why that happened. I can just say the Lord brought us through it and sustained us through it and provided through his people. And but I can't like say like, oh, this is why that happened. But yes, there were definitely many moments where I was just sort of like,
enough. Yeah.
but it was like when those those silly life moments were piled on top of on top of the tragedy.
Yeah.
The tragedy itself, I was just sort of like,
Yeah.
plugging through, sort of. So
Well, because it seems, I don't know, like from my, I guess kind of outside looking in perspective, it seems unfair that those kind of stupid life problems would continue to happen when you're dealing with something so much bigger, because you think like that's enough. Like the big thing is enough. Don't pile on all those like small and really just annoying, inconvenient things. Save those for the people, at home, and so I'm curious. Well, first, I have a question kind of about your conversations with God now, but bring us to how Jennings is doing today.
Yeah. So he's doing wonderfully. He had a really rough year recovering from transplant. He was hospitalized at Christmas time again last year, which was a huge heartbreak for us because it was supposed to be kind of a redemptive Christmas.
Yeah.
And that was really a blow. And then he had pneumonia where basically like his new immune system sort of overreacted and caused some inflammation in his lungs, in which he needed steroids to recover from. So he had to be on steroids and was just on a lot of meds for a year, and then struggled very deeply with eating for a long time. He was in feeding therapy. He was in physical therapy for a short amount of time. But around March of this year, April, was a year post-transplant. And that's really when he just kind of started to recover. His body just was kind of like, his immune system was functioning. He had more strength and energy and endurance. And we've really just been going uphill from there, which has just been incredible. Kind of unbelievable in a way because you get so used to your child not doing well, that everything he does is amazing. Like his first jump in a pool,
Yeah, it's all a miracle.
him riding a bike, him just sleeping in his own bed, playing with his brothers and sisters, something as simple as like seeing him in his car seat, when he was first discharged was incredible. It's just all these little things. So he is back at preschool. He had his first day of school in 2 years back in December.
That's awesome.
September. And he's in the 4s class, and he goes 5 days a week. His immune system is about 18 months old, so he's safe to go and be exposed to things, but he does pick up, I wouldn't say like anything very serious, but he gets like a cough cold pretty often,
Yeah.
But other than that, he's thriving, and he's so big, and he's growing, and to see him grow is, it's incredible. We're savoring every moment with him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's a miracle,
He really is.
And they all are, you think about it all pieced together. Caroline saved his life.
Yes.
Jennings is a miracle. And the babies are really miracles too. I mean, just bringing twins into the world is no small feat. And it sounds like they have completely been able to thrive.
They have. I think the Lord's really protected them.
Yeah.
That was my prayer in the beginning was, I wasn't going to be able to be everywhere, and my kids, I don't pretend to think that they're not going to have stuff and questions and memories of trauma. I think that I know enough about our brains to know that it will come up, but, I'm confident will come up, when they're ready and as their minds process things. And there are some things that come up here and there. We talk about them openly, and, but overall they are, they're all just doing so well. And we're so thankful for how God protected them during that time.
That makes me so happy and just thankful to the Lord that he watched over your family in such a tremendous way. So we talked a little bit about the fact that now, your conversations with a lot of what you're dealing with now sounds like some guilt and fear and a little anger here and there, but mostly the guilt and the fear. But having gone through the valley of these, this tremendous experience that brought you, I would venture to say, closer to the Lord. What are your conversations with the Lord like these days? Not just related to what you experience directly with cancer, but just for your family and your faith generally.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, and it's not going to sound very flowery. Because of the nature of our trauma and the fact that my brain was really kind of turned on survival mode for a pretty extensive amount of time because of Jennings and because of the babies. Like twins alone, like ask any mother of multiples, whether she had them first or she had them third or fifth. Twins are just a really special experience. And I really haven't had the margin in my days to fully process. And so this fall for me has been a very intentional time of processing. So
That's good.
I've actually been going to counseling to discuss some of this, and we're only really now starting to unpack and do work. Because those who've been in counseling, it takes time to really unpack all this stuff and the befores and the durings and all that. And so I'm in a healing place. I wouldn't say I feel healed. I feel like the Lord is really pruning me right now and helping me process my true feelings about the trauma so that I can come out blossomed, if you will.
I
don't feel blossomed right now. I feel like I'm being pruned. Because I'm really only now dealing with what I was dealt. Because during that time, it was just, and people, again, who have been through trauma and tragedy can attest to this, that you are taking the next step forward and doing the things you have to do to get through. But you're really not taking in all of your feelings.
Yeah.
And you're especially not taking them in if you have infant twins and twin toddlers. At the same time. So, my conversations with the Lord are, I would say, probably more questiony right now. And also just like longing for the healing and wanting him to, again, I'm an Enneagram 3, I'm productive. I want to put, hit the gas pedal on this healing process. And I want to do the work and get it done and see the fruit, but it's not like that. But I know he is at work, and I trust that he is at work, and I can see that. But it's messy.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate your honesty there, because I'm realizing that the flaw in my question is my assumption, and I bet a lot of other people assume this. And I didn't realize that I assumed this until you answered my question. But I think there is this assumption that, okay, I'm using air quotes, you made it through. He's, again, air quotes, he's doing well. So therefore you're, this kind of like assumption that you've come full circle and now you're okay, and I'm realizing the flaw in that, which is exactly what you said, that you haven't necessarily kept up with the speed at which things were happening. And so you're just now dealing with some of the things that happened, a year ago, and feeling ways about those experiences that are, a year old, so to speak, because you didn't have the space either mentally or emotionally or spiritually to really process it. So I'm sorry that but I'm realizing that, well, I know, but it's like, okay, I see that now, that the flaw in that question. And so that's interesting. And so I encourage other people to like stop and think, that people maybe aren't fine now that like the journey, the worst of it seems to be over,
I think it's tricky because I do use social media and I share, and I share the wonderful milestones that we're feeling because I feel I feel excited to share them, and I feel a responsibility to share them to the literally the thousands of people that followed our story.
Yeah.
And I want them to see the good work that God has done, but it doesn't necessarily reflect this like very excited posture of my own heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't be, I'm just not there yet. And because I'm still dealing with fear, and I'm still dealing with, and cancer just does that to you.
Yeah.
And I'm just dealing with that. And
Yeah.
so, but that's not,
as I would
don't want to
expect.
let that keep me from sharing the positive things. And each, month that goes on, and Jennings is doing better and better, I unfreeze a little bit more. But there's this element of being frozen, like to your own stuff, like that you can't quite cry over it, you can't quite celebrate things. And most of it is fear related. And before this, fear was not a part of my life.
Yeah.
I was not an anxious person. I still don't consider myself that, but I am because of this.
Yeah.
And so I'm navigating this new identity of being a fearful person, and it's very foreign to me. And so, I would encourage anyone out there who has been through trauma, grief of any kind, who has the opportunity to talk to a professional about it, to do that, because it's really helped me get out of my own head and like have someone hear my words and then speak them back to me.
Yeah.
It's been really good and helpful, and again, we're just scratching the surface and starting. So yeah, I think it's a common misconception, but remission is for cancer patients is a milestone, and it's great, but it's certainly not the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jennings has had a durable remission, a very durable remission, and we're very thankful, and we feel very hopeful for his cure. And he'll be 2 years post-transplant in April of next year. And for his disease, 2 years, it's not you have no chance of relapsing, but it's low, so we're getting there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I look forward to a time when I really feel like I can celebrate. But a lot of that is the enemy lying to me.
Yeah.
I'm working through that, and I would just encourage people out there who have friends who are walking through trauma to stay connected and be present with your friend wherever they are. Like if they want to celebrate, if they want to just be mad about what they have experienced. Presence is such a huge part of being a friend during this time. It's not saying the right thing or having these right words. It's just being around and being there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important, really valuable advice, because I think a lot of us, myself included, kind of go like, oh, I don't know what to say. And so I think hearing it from someone who's walked that side of it, to say, just be there is really important. Oh, man. So as we start to wrap up, I am excited for you to share for a couple of minutes, because we're nearing the end of our time for this episode. But I want everybody to know about your Leukemia and Lymphoma Society Woman of the Year campaign, and how we can support you in that.
So cool. So the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society is a nonprofit organization that seeks to cure blood cancer, and leukemia is a blood cancer as well as lymphoma, and also multiple myelomas, and they are an amazing organization that has funded a lot of really cutting edge science, which I could like geek out on for like another hour, because I'm a blood geek now, but I'll keep it top level. So the Man and Woman of the Year campaign is one of their fundraising programs that they do to raise funds for their research and advocacy programs. And here in Charlotte, it was the #1 campaign in the country. So they have these programs in all of their chapters throughout the country. And Charlotte was the #1 campaign last year, raising $3 million in 10 weeks with 20 candidates. I'm not sure about that number.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
But basically, it's a competitive fundraising campaign. So this is an Enneagram 3's dream.
Yeah, I was going to say, you are like made for this.
Yes. So it's competitive, but the idea is like someone wins, but in the end, and they win the title Woman of the Year or Man of the Year. But if you don't win, we're all winning, because collectively we are going to raise a really large amount of money for blood cancer research and cures. And so it takes place next year, March 26th, 2020 through June 6th, 2020, and ends with a black tie finale gala here in Charlotte on June 6th. And that night, the winner is announced. And so I am working on raising money, although at this time I'm not taking any money. I don't have a live fundraising site right now, but I will on March 26th. But right now I'm talking to companies and friends and families to see if they will commit a certain amount to my campaign or pledge an amount to my campaign. So I'm kind of starting early because, again, I have 4 kids.
Yes. You need a good long runway.
Yeah. I mean, it's like eating the elephant one bite at a time is kind of my strategy.
Yeah.
So, and I have a team of people with me that are going to be fundraising, doing their own mini campaigns with me. And that's the strategy. I'm not going to be raising this amount of money by myself. So just to give you a little bit of context, the winner last year in Charlotte raised, and I'm not going to get the dollar for dollar amount quite right, but approximately $800,000.
Holy cow. That's amazing.
Yes, she was amazing. She was a powerhouse. So the stakes are high for me, but, I think we're all going to, it doesn't matter what each person raises. I think we're all going to be able to meet that goal from last year. We're going to do 3 million again.
Yeah. That's incredible.
The candidate total, the average per candidate might go up. I don't know if anyone else will be able to raise 800,000. Maybe they will. I don't know. It'll be fun to see.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's all for the same good cause.
That's exactly right. In the end, it's $3 million for blood cancer research, and the Leukemia Lymphoma Society is doing a large scale children's initiative this year that is actually going to be studying Jennings's exact disease. As I shared, AML has a 50-50 survival rate compared to the 90% survival rate of the most common type of childhood leukemia. So AML really needs attention and research dollars, and LLS is an organization that's doing that. And that's why I've decided to fund, to fuel my gifts and talents with this organization. And I'm proud to do that.
Well, you're going to be incredible at it. And when you do have a link, we'll update the online links to link to that, and we'll share all about it. You're gonna do great. I'm very excited to see what you're able to do with this, platform.
Yes, and I've been telling my friends, and so for me, Woman of the Year is just one step. It's a first step in a lifetime of advocacy. So
yeah.
I plan to work alongside LLS and other organizations to continue to tell the pediatric story because it is unique and it is different than adult cancer for different reasons. And I feel like God has gifted me in such a way where I'm an action taker, and so I am excited to be in a place where I can do it.
Yeah. Well, you are the right woman for it. So, I know that this was likely not the path that you would have chosen, but you've handled it with a lot of grace. And since that's your middle name,
Yes, that's right. It is.
So, thank you so much, Lauren, for sharing your story and Jennings' story and your family's story, because y'all are very special. And I'm so grateful for the example that you all have set as a family, and that you and Joel have set, as a couple in your marriage. And I'm thankful that you shared your story as it was happening, but that you're also sharing it now and your faith journey through all of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I enjoyed speaking with you. It was great.
Yeah, you're welcome. And we'll link to all the important links in the show notes, and then we'll update it with the fundraising link.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Lauren. I'm so thankful for the moms who share their stories on here on the show and in our fun Instagram community. I'd love for you to connect with me online at Influential Motherhood on Instagram and Facebook to continue the conversation or just say hello. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star rating and a written review in the Apple Podcast app. It's how you can help get the show in front of moms looking for episodes just like this one. I hope you'll find a way to influence your work or community for good this week. Don't forget, you can listen to other episodes or learn more about the show at www.influentialmotherhood.com. See you next week.